Hey guys, it's Van. I just wanted to say before the episode gets started that Kris and I are not medical professionals or parenting experts. We are just two moms with opinions and advice, and our podcast should not be used as a substitute for seeking help from your doctor or any other medical professional. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome back to another episode of Spike Coffee and Sarcasm with Kris and Van. Hi, Van.
Hi, Kris. What's going on?
It's been a week from hell.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree for you. I would agree that it's been a week from hell. I know what's been going on, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get started with what we are going to talk about, we together have made a decision about our podcast, and we're going to change directions a little bit. And we came to this decision. Well, first, when we started out on this journey about 6 months ago, we wanted our podcast to be fun, lighthearted, two friends just kicking back, shooting the crap and not, nothing. We didn't want it to be anything too serious. For the most part, most of our episodes have been that way. I just kind of started to feel like because we weren't in the same place, we weren't in the same room, we are in two different states, we do everything over Skype, that it just wasn't working the way that I had anticipated it to work. What the idea in my head was not what we were producing. And
agreed.
Not to say that I am not proud of what we've already put out there. We're not going to take anything down. We're not going to trash anything or anything like that. I'm proud of what we've already done. I just think that we do something that is a little bit more true to who both of us are, and that is we are both moms. We are both people who struggle on a daily basis to either make ends meet or to be happy, to get up out of bed every day. We both struggle with those issues. And after getting that one email from that listener wanting our advice about her son smoking marijuana, I started thinking that, I wonder if we kind of switch gears here, maybe we can help other people. And just by helping, I mean, as a mom, every single day, I think every mom in the entire world, at least once a day, thinks to herself that she's the worst mom in the world. And I know I do it. Yeah. I know that I do it more than once a day, several times a day. And some of the things that I've been through with my kids and some of the things you've been through with your kids, we don't always think that we're the best moms in the world or the best wife or the best friend or sister, aunt, anything, whatever we are to anybody in our lives. Sometimes we don't feel like we're being the best person that we can be. And I know that other people out there feel that same way. And sometimes people feel like they're alone. And I think that knowing who you are and knowing who I am, I think that if we talked about topics that could potentially bring somebody out of a dark place or lift somebody up because they're having a bad day, I think that both you and I would get a lot of happiness and satisfaction out of that. And I think both of us kind of need that in our lives right now. And so with that being said, we're kind of switching gears with our podcast. We are still going to do our coffee breaks. And that is when our silliness and our would you rather questions and the craziness that we have in our other episodes will come in. We're still going to keep that here. We're just going to do it on a shorter basis. And our episodes are going to be more topic driven. Topics about life, about motherhood, about friendship, about
things that we are daily dealing with.
Yes.
Or dealing with daily. About things that just happen in our lives every day that probably happen with most of you. And when you feel the most alone is when you know that you're not alone.
Yes.
Because we're all going through it.
Yes. And it's going to be pretty real. So there might be times where one or both of us shed a tear or many tears. We will still be laughing.
It could happen.
It could happen. I know it could happen. I am a sarcastic person by nature. And I do try and make light of most everything because, like Kris has said many times, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And we try and laugh as much as we can. We try and make each other laugh when we're helping each other through things. And hopefully this will be some therapy for the both of us also. Because we both know getting off the phone with each other after talking for an hour, after having a bad day or a bad week or whatever, both of us feel better, and we're usually laughing by the end of the conversation anyway. So
that's very true.
That is what I'm hoping that we will bring to the table, switching this podcast up a little. I understand that we might lose some listeners because this may not be what they want to listen to, which is fine. But I also know that we'll probably gain some more listeners because there are going to be people out there who want to know that we are real people, we struggle, we succeed just like everybody else. So that's what we're going to be doing. So our topic for this episode is going to be disease. So that sounds kind of gross.
Nice. Boy, that was a heck of a segue.
Right? It's going to be
how about just illness? Mm-hmm. You know, like illness. Then it doesn't sound so life-threatening.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about flesh-eating diseases or anything like that. But I will let you take it away now because illness has taken over your life at this point in your household. And I think that you have quite a story to tell. So take it away, Kris.
Okay, so where do I begin? So, as we have mentioned in the past, I have a 17-year-old son, and he started getting sick. I don't know, it's been a couple weeks he's been complaining, and just that he's not feeling good. And then in the last week, it started where he was really tired and just, stomach ache and headache and all these different things. So I took him to the doctor because he never asks to go. So when your 17-year-old son says, I think I need to go to the doctor, it's definitely a red flag.
For sure.
So anyway, I took him to the doctor and they ran some tests. And at first, when we first got there, he hadn't had anything to eat or drink for 12 hours, at the very least 12 hours. He was really pale. He just did not feel good. So they wanted and he was having a lot of stomach aches and headaches, not like stomach aches in terms of just feeling full. And it didn't matter bloated. What he did. He didn't. Yeah, exactly. Like he would, take a bite of something and it would instantly fill him up. And that is not him. This kid can eat a whole pizza by himself.
That's when you know something's wrong. He was down to yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, they took him down and they wanted to draw some labs and they did that. And that's the first time I've ever seen my son almost pass out. He doesn't usually freak out about needles, but he turned white and then got sick to his stomach and, that was kind of an ordeal.
Yeah.
Anyway, nonetheless, they tested him for a gastric ulcer, like H. pylori. And, they also tested him, they checked his blood sugars, and it turned out that he is pre-diabetic. So that was a thing. And that was a lot harder. That was harder for me. Like, all the stuff that he was complaining about was pretty normal stuff until they said, okay, he's pre-diabetic. And then it got real quick. Yeah. It was like from the moment they said that, it was, my heart hit the floor and I thought, oh my gosh, all this stuff, things have to change and we have to do things different. And it just became a lot. Mm-hmm. So then they did this, they did the H. pylori test and said that within 2 days they would get the results back, and they said that because they did diagnose him as positive with that. But she called me back and said that the H. pylori test is positive for an 18-year-old, not a 17-year-old. And so he's kind of on the border. They gave him medication, and he's still taking that until all of the tests come back, which will take until next week. And if it comes back negative, the final test, if it comes back negative, then they will take him off the antibiotics and, all of that. But he'll continue on it for a month or whatever if it is positive. But she called me 2 days ago, and this was so today is Saturday. It was last Monday that I took him to the doctor. On Wednesday is when they told me that he had she said right there that he was pre-diabetic on that Monday.
Okay.
Then on Wednesday she called me and she told me that they from the labs that they had already taken, they found out he has mono.
Ugh.
And that is, here's the thing with mono. That's not something I've ever had to deal with, but my husband did. He had it really, really bad when he was younger, and it was so bad that when he was younger, he never went to the doctor. So it wasn't until he started peeing brown that he realized that it was something really bad. They went, he's like 18. They took him to the doctor, and it turned out that he had mono really bad. And it affected his liver, his spleen,
for sure.
Everything.
Yeah.
It definitely plays a number. So yesterday, was it yesterday? Friday? Yes, it was yesterday morning. I took, we had also scheduled a CAT scan. And I took Brandon down to have the CAT scan on his stomach just to, because my husband had mono in the past and that was an issue. It turned out that Brandon also has his spleen is enlarged, which is a pretty common symptom of mono.
Okay.
So, and because it's a virus, there's nothing they can do for it.
Yeah, no medication.
Yeah. So now, yesterday morning when he woke up, now this is Friday morning, he wakes up and he's got 103-degree fever. Actually, that was the night before. So Thursday night he had a 103-degree fever. Then the next morning he had a fever before he had the CT. And he's been pretty around the clock with fevers now for the last, since Thursday night. So now that he's been diagnosed with mono, now he's hitting the hard part of it before it starts getting better.
Yeah, for sure.
And he is completely exhausted. I've never, like this morning, he woke up in a sweat because he's had the fever and it's breaking. Mm-hmm. So he woke up in a sweat. He got up and took a shower at like 6 in the morning and he fell asleep and he slept until 3 after sleeping all night.
Yeah.
So I've never seen anything like that wipe you out so quickly. It's pretty crazy.
I have heard of other people having mono or their children having mono, and it literally, it knocks you out for a good month, sometimes even longer. And it's like that. It's fevers and they sleep a lot. And, it, like you said, it's a virus. So there's no medication to knock it out. It's just kind of your body's got to fight it off, itself. And it's going to take a while and he's going to be tired for a while. And wow, that's crazy.
It is crazy. So when I was talking to, I've mentioned before, he's got a girlfriend. She's the sweetest heart I've ever met. She's so nice. But she's also in the medical field. She's a CNA. So she knows a lot of the lingo when it comes to medical terms and all this stuff. And she knows what numbers are right and what numbers are wrong. And she has ridden him pretty hard about making sure to check when they prescribe the medication for him, the medication for his gastric ulcer. Mm-hmm. They also prescribed, or H. pylori, I should say. They also prescribed a glucose monitor because he's borderline pre-diabetic. And so she's riding him as hard as I am about making sure he's testing his blood sugar and are you taking your medication and are you this and are you that? Well, after we found out he had mono, her family has, told him, you guys can't see each other right now because this is a thing. And it's, it's very, very contagious. She went and got tested and it was negative. But yesterday, Brandon was tested on Wednesday and it was positive. So she went down it was either Wednesday afternoon or Thursday. And she was negative. But then she started exhibiting signs of it. Like she's got some of the same symptoms, really tired, sore throat, headache. But I'm not sure what the circumstances are, but Brandon had said something about her aunt thinking that it might just be in her head right now because the test was negative. So if she starts feeling worse, I suppose she'll have to have it retested or whatever. But for right now, she's really good. I've told Brandon, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm telling Taylor. Because Taylor will make him do it.
Right.
Yes. So that's kind of, I've kind of got an ace in the hole there. And we were sitting there yesterday waiting for the he had to drink this contrast. So we had to wait like an hour. So he had to drink 100 cc's of this contrast and then wait 10 minutes, then drink 100 cc's from 450 all the way to 0. And so every 10 minutes he was drinking more of this. So it took, 45 minutes or whatever. And during that time we were sitting there waiting to get the CT scan done. Well, she started texting him. And when he would say he doesn't know something, she started texting me. So now he's going, does she not trust me? She doesn't trust me to answer her or say the right thing? Will you just tell her that I'm talking through you from now on?
Oh, goodness.
So it was really funny. It was kind of amusing that they...
Well, don't they call mono the kissing disease? Isn't that like what it's...
Yes, they do.
Well, see?
Yes, the kissing disease. And it is transmitted through saliva. That's the number one thing. It's highly, highly contagious, but it's contagious through saliva. So that is what they say. It's the kissing disease. So you shouldn't... Yeah, they're not allowed to be together right now. Her aunts won't let them come around, but they would be kissing, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, funny story. Well, not really funny story because there's nothing funny about mono, but a related story. When I was, freshman in high school, when my parents got divorced, my mom moved to Ohio. And I went up there for 6 weeks the first summer that she was up there. And there was a boy. His name was Kris, I believe. I think that was his name. He was visiting his grandparents across the street from my mom. And so, I thought he was cute. He liked me, blah, 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 however that works. And we hung out for a while. We went to the movies, did all that, did some kissing, all that stuff that teenagers do. And he ended up with mono. So... I know. I infected him. I don't know how I did that, but my saliva got him sick, so... So there's a...
Wow, that's crazy. You know what? And I honestly think that I think boys are more... I don't want to say that they're more... I think boys are more susceptible to it because most of the stories that I hear have been boys getting it versus girls. And I don't know that statistically. I haven't looked that part up, but it always seems like the boys are the ones that get it. I ran to this store today, and one of Brandon's friends works at the grocery store, and he says to me, something about Brandon being sick. And I said, yeah, it's all you weak boys getting sick. And he was like, hey. It was really amusing.
We both know that men are the weaker sex, and, especially when they get sick. Boy, do they turn into a bunch of babies. Woof.
Yes, the whole man flu thing, Oh my gosh.
It's horrible.
They're dying.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
It is horrible.
Wow. Well.
So on that note, now that I've told my story, how about if we talk a little about Nate and his story?
Well, first, I just want to say I hope Brandon gets better soon, and I hope it doesn't last any longer than a month. Not only more for his sake, because obviously I don't want him feeling bad, but also for your sake, because my best friend does not handle this kind of stuff very well. And
no.
I think I've had to talk her down this week once or twice just to kind of, bring her back down to a sensible level of, no, he's not dying. Let's just kind of lay it all out and see what we're facing before we condemn him to the morgue. So,
right.
So,
in on a related note, that since you just said that, it is no secret that, first of all, I overanalyze everything. Mm-hmm. I always have. I'm an overthinker, and I know that. It's probably the trait about myself I dislike the most because it diminishes your confidence and it diminishes any positive. If you feel like you're doing good in one way, overthinking is a quick way to make yourself not feel good anymore. And I do that often.
I do it too.
So at work, I was in a meeting. One of the girls that I work with, I only see her at work. excuse me, I only see her at work, but one day she and I came out of this meeting together, and she just looked me dead in the eye and she goes, this was on Wednesday. She looks me dead in the eye and she goes, all right, what's wrong? And it was so blunt. Yeah. And you know how when you don't feel well or you're not, it's the weirdest thing when you're not feeling well and somebody that you respect or care for or whatever, you value their opinion, when they say something to you like that, like, what's wrong or whatever, it makes you cry.
Of course.
I mean, I instantly lost it.
Yep.
And I told her, I told her everything that was going on, and she goes, you know what? You need a break. You need to do this. And right now I'm on leave from work for just a couple of days because we've had a death in our family. My sister-in-law passed away. So I had 3 days of bereavement time, which I'm not saying that it came at a perfect time or anything. I mean, nobody's death comes, you never want that to happen. Not. But with all of this happening with my family, with my son being sick and all of that, taking these 3 days off has not only helped me grieve the loss of my sister-in-law, but it's also helped me deal with, with everything that's going on with Brandon.
For sure.
So I'm hoping that I go back to work on Monday and I have a clearer head and I can regroup. I feel like I've regrouped already, but I can go back to work and just be able to wrap my head around, okay, I've got this. It's, one less thing I had to deal with, and that I needed these couple of days off. I think it was a big deal.
Well, you know what you're facing now, and you have all your information, and you know that, he's going to be okay. It's going to take a little while, but he'll be okay. And, it's not something that you have to have on the forefront of your mind when you're at work. It can kind of be pushed back a little bit and only have to worry about it when you're at home. I get that. I do that every day of my life.
That was a good segue because I was, I know that I know the story with Nathan, and I think that it's important that we touch that because it's, Brandon is sick and it's something that he's got and he's going to get over right away. But Nathan's story is a little different, and so I think that's important to tell.
Well, my son is 14 and a half, basically.
Yep.
One morning when he was 11, almost 12, I think. I don't know. It's all kind of a blur. I would have to write everything down in order to really remember. But he was in the 6th grade. We'll put it that way. He was in the 6th grade, and it was October, and I was awake laying in bed, and he woke up to go to the bathroom, and next thing I know is I just hear a loud, like thump, and some other kind of noise, and I said his name and he didn't answer, and I went in there and he was seizing. It is the most horrifying and helpless thing to see your child in that position. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what to do. Plus the fact that Nathan was already almost getting to be the same height as me, and he's solid as far as move. There's no way that I could move him. And I didn't have my glasses on, for one. That was an issue. And Ian is standing there watching this, freaked out and scared. And I have my phone, and I'm standing over Nathan as he's having this seizure, and I'm trying to dial 911, and I can't get my phone to work. I can't. I physically and mentally cannot figure out why I can't bring up my phone, the phone number, the numbers, the keypad, and I can't get it to where I can dial 911. And so finally I did get 911 on the line, and of course I'm freaking out. I'm screaming. She can't understand what I'm saying, and I remember her saying, "Ma'am, I need you to calm down so I can understand what you're trying to tell me." So I did, and I finally, got out what I was trying to say, and she was like, "Okay, I have the fire department on the way," and then she's asking me all these questions. And by then, Nathan had stopped seizing. It was short. It wasn't a long one. It was short, and he was coherent, and he was talking to me. He was confused. He didn't know why he was laying on the bathroom floor, and I'm standing over him. He doesn't know what's going on.
Oy vey.
So I remember later telling my mom when we were at the hospital that I was mad at that 911 lady to tell me to calm down because my son's having a seizure and you want me to calm down. And my mom's like, but Vanessa, she was just doing her. She just needed to know what was going on. And you were freaking out. And I was like, I know, but how does she expect me to calm down? So, I had this whole moment of how dare she do that, when in hindsight, she was just doing her job. So anyway, the fire department came. They did take him to the children's hospital in the ambulance, which I didn't ride in the ambulance with him, which I thought was, that's one of those moments where, God, what kind of mother am I that I don't even ride in the ambulance with my son? But I had my other son, and, they're not going to take both of us in the ambulance with my son. So we had to drive. I didn't have a choice. There was no choice. So,
right.
As we were waiting for the fire department to come, I had called my ex-husband and let him know what was going on. And I said, I'll call you as soon as I know what hospital they're taking him to. And he was there by the time we got there. So anyway, we get to the hospital. He doesn't have another one at all while we're at the hospital. We're at the hospital for 3 days, I think. And they did a CAT scan. They did an MRI. They did an EEG, which an EEG is when they put all those things on your head. And they had him go to sleep and wake up. And it measures your brain waves. I have chosen in my life at this point to remain single, to not have a relationship with anybody in my life. And for many reasons, and that can be another whole episode. But it is a very lonely place when you're in the hospital with your child and you don't know what's going on and you're alone. Like my dad was there, and I certainly appreciate that. But the two people that I wanted there the most couldn't be there, which would be you and my mom.
Right.
And
of course,
it was just, my ex-husband was there, and, that's all fine and dandy, but it's not like he's going to console me. Like, we don't have that type of relationship, In fact, when they got done with his CAT scan, before they did the MRI, the doctors took me and Mike out of Nathan's room, and they took us into a room off the way, and he put the scan down on the table of his brain. And I looked over at it, and there's, his brain's kind of gray because the CAT scan's in black and white. And I looked at it, and there's a white spot. And my body literally went numb. Like, I was like, they're going to tell us that he has a tumor and it's cancer. And my brain, like you, I go to the worst case scenario.
Yep, of course.
So I'm sitting there, and I'm in the chair, and I'm literally like rocking. Like, I'm rocking back and forth because I'm just trying to keep it together. And he tells, he starts talking, and honestly, I don't even remember what the doctor said. I don't remember much of what he said. I do remember Mike asking him if it was cancer. And the doctor said, we don't know what it is yet. We're going to do an MRI to get a better look at what it is. The doctor says, okay, we're going to go and talk to Nate. And we get up, and, Mike is... He's not a very emotional guy. He can pretty much hide anything. He doesn't show much emotion. And me, I show all emotion. There's no hiding emotion when it comes to me. And I'm walking to his room, and I'm hyperventilating, and I'm bawling. And my dad is in the room with Nathan, so he doesn't see this going on. I kind of stop before I go in the room because I don't want Nathan to see me like this. And I stop for a second. I'm trying to compose myself. I'm trying to just, I don't want Nathan to see me crying because we don't know how bad it is. I don't want him to think that it's bad, but oh my fucking God, that's what I'm thinking. And as Mike, which is my ex-husband, he walks by me, and he does put his hand on my shoulder and kind of squeezes it. And, that's, the best that I'm going to get from him, which was fine, which was great. But then Nathan had this really great male nurse while we were at the hospital. He was so fantastic. Like, he was good with Nathan. He joked with Nathan. He told Nathan everything he was doing and why he was doing it. And he was funny, and he was so fantastic. Not to mention he was nice on the eyes. I'm just going to put that out there. So,
there's always a silver lining, Dan.
Of course. So I'm standing there outside the door, and I'm trying to calm down, and it's not working. Like I'm trying and I can't. This nurse walks up to me and gives me a hug and says, "We don't know what it is yet. We don't know what's going on. You can't let him see you this way." And I just was like, Aww. Okay, like he was the person that just kind of made me go, okay, I'm gonna take a deep breath. I'm gonna calm down. But of course, as soon as I walked into the room, Nathan looked at me and he knew he wouldn't take his eyes off of me. And so they tell Nate what's going on. And, Nate's a lot like his dad. He didn't show much emotion. The thing that I do remember is that, like I said, Nathan wouldn't take his eyes off me. The doctor's talking to him and he's looking at me the whole time. And here I am trying to hold back tears and smile at the same time. And that's probably the hardest thing ever. So they go and they do the MRI and they tell me that one parent can go back there and be with Nathan during the MRI. I told Mike to do it. I said, there are certain things that I don't want to see my child go through. I had already watched him have a seizure. I don't want to see him get an MRI, which I've had an MRI before, so I know that it's not horrible, but still, it's my baby. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see him to go through that. Yep. So Mike went back and did that with him. And they come back, the MRI, and they tell us that he does have a lesion on, I can't remember what part of the brain it is now. It's been too long. But he does have a lesion on his brain. They said that it's old, it's calcified, so it's probably been there for a long time. And the doctor said most people probably have a lesion or 2 or 3 on their brains and you'll never even know until something like this happens and they scan your brain and then they find him. So it could have been he fell when he was 2 and bonked his head and it left a lesion. You just don't know. They called in a neurosurgeon to look at everything to see if maybe it was something that needed to be surgically removed, which, God, let me tell you, when they say they're, when they're calling in a neurosurgeon to operate on your child's brain, okay, not fun. Let me just put it that way. That's not anything you ever want to hear. The neurosurgeon says they don't think surgery is necessary. Like they said, it was old, it was calcified. There's really no reason to open up his brain to go in and get something that's old. So that was a relief. So then they do the EEG, and they do find out, though, that the activity that possibly caused the seizure was right in that area where that lesion is. Okay. Yeah. The way that one of the neurosurgeons put it to us, when Nathan goes to sleep, and then when he wakes up, that part of his brain where that lesion is has a hard time going from asleep to awake. And so it kind of just goes a little crazy. It goes a little haywire. And that's what causes the seizures. And most of his seizures, if he does have one, are in the morning hours. Especially if he doesn't take a night dose of medicine, then the next morning a seizure is inevitable. The neurosurgeon also, not the neurosurgeon, but the neurologist, did say that there is a possibility, which this possibility I've been holding on to for almost 3 years now, that he could outgrow this and that his brain and that part of his brain could regenerate and grow new tissue, because your brain doesn't stop growing until you're 21. And through that growing process, new tissue can regenerate. And the hope is that area will just start to calm down and new neurons, or, the little nerve cells or whatever you want to call them. I don't know. I'm not a neurologist, but they'll just get new ones and they'll forget that there was ever an issue, and then that they won't cause a seizure, is how they put it to us.
Has he had a scan since then, or has he not?
Well, when the seizures first started, he would just have them for like 30 seconds and then he would wake up and he'd be fine. Well, after a little while, his right side of his body started going numb after a seizure. So when I brought that up to his neurologist that we had at the time, he said, well, I'm going to get another MRI scan because I want to see if anything's changed. He goes, it is a common symptom of seizures for that to happen, but I just want to make sure nothing's changed. And that was within the first year of the seizures. We switched to neurologist because the neurologist that we had, not that he wasn't a good doctor, it was that he was like 150 years old. And he probably should have retired because it was just every time I talked to him, he never knew what medication Nathan was on. He always thought Nathan was on liquid medication when Nathan's on pills. He didn't know what dose. And I had to go through this every time I talked to him. And the last conversation I had with him, I just was like, I can't do this anymore. This is frustrating enough as it is, and it's stressful enough as it is. I don't need to keep rehashing this and reliving this with the doctor every time I talk to him. So I found a doctor at Phoenix Children's Hospital. And he has been wonderful. He has not done any new scans. Recently, I have asked him if we could, or if he deemed it necessary, because Nathan's seizures had, at the beginning of this year, had started kind of becoming more frequent. But the doctor has said, and I have read up on it, that because Nathan is 14, hormones, because you know what we all go through when we're 14, our bodies are going through all kinds of changes, and hormone levels are all over the place, that can cause an up in the number of seizures. So he's like, there's just nothing really new for me to want to have to get a scan. And I get that. You know, if a scan's not needed, it's not needed. Nothing's different other than that they're becoming more frequent, but there's really kind of an explanation for that. I still hope and I still pray, and I want these to go away. That's what I think about constantly on a daily basis, is I want these to go away. I don't want him to have to go through this anymore. I don't sleep well. I don't sleep much. I mean, I sleep, but I'm up and down a lot because every little noise makes me think that, okay, is that Nathan? Is that, you know? Yep. And Nathan is 14. He will be 15 in February. And it's getting to that time where he will be able to get a permit and be able to start learning to drive. And I'm going to cry when I say this. I want that for him. But if he's having seizures, the chances of him being able to drive are not going to be possible. That breaks my heart. Because it's not fair. He didn't ask for this. I just want him to have normal teenage years, and so far he hasn't. So I totally understand that. I totally get that. And so the diagnosis 100% was or is epilepsy. Yes.
He has juvenile epilepsy, or is there a distinction between being a kid or an adult with it?
Well, I mean, they'll call it juvenile epilepsy until he's an adult, I guess. I don't think there's really much of a difference. I mean, epilepsy is epilepsy. There's different types. When I talked earlier about, talking you down to, okay, let's really look at what we're facing. Yeah. I tell myself on a daily basis, and especially when a seizure does happen, my anxiety level goes up, and I cry, and, I get angry, but I have to tell myself that his seizures are 30 seconds at the most. And and they're not causing any comprehension issues or cognitive issues or anything like that with him. And they happen far and in between. And there are children out there with epilepsy who have up to 30 seizures a day. That breaks my heart, because just watching him have one is horrible, and it's heartbreaking. And to know that there's parents out there who are watching their child do this 30 times a day, I can't even imagine what that's like. My heart goes out to those people, and I pray every day that there is a cure for this disease, and that they find something that will help and make these things go away, because it's horrible, and it's not fair, and it's probably one of the worst things that could have happened, because I don't like things to be up in the air, and I don't like not having answers. And with epilepsy, you don't have answers. You don't know why. It can happen to anybody at any age, at any time. It does not discriminate. It doesn't care who it affects. And that is so incredibly frustrating because I want the doctor to tell me why this is happening, and he can't. There's no answers. Yep. They're trying to find them, and the neurologist we have, he's an epilepsy specialist. He's written papers and done all this, and he's just like, I can't tell you why this happened. I don't know. You know, it's gotten a little bit better. Well, my anxiety's gotten a little better. The way that I handle this situation has gotten better. I've chosen to not let it defy who we are. I still let Nathan do normal things. When he wants to go to the mall with his friends, he goes to the mall with his friends. He has a medical bracelet, which I really don't know where that medical bracelet is right now because he took it off at his dad's house and I haven't seen it since. That's another whole, his dad in this whole situation is another episode. But in any case, I try and make life as normal as possible. We talk about it when we need to talk about it. He gets angry at me sometimes because there are certain things I will not let him do. He doesn't understand it, and I have to explain to him I'm not doing it to be mean. I'm not doing it because I don't want you to do these things. I'm doing it because it's not safe, and I'm looking out for your safety. And I need you to understand that. And when I have those conversations with him, he gets it and he understands it. Sometimes he blames himself for some of the things that we can't do, and that's horrible. And that's, you know, when you have to have a conversation of, we didn't ask for this. We didn't ask God or whoever it is up there or causing our destiny or whatever. We didn't go looking for this. We didn't ask for this to happen. It was just the cards that we were dealt, and we have to just deal with it, and we just have to make the best out of it that we can, and we can't let it just control our lives. If I did that, I would never get out of bed. And Nathan would, I would have him in the house constantly. He would never do anything. And I can't do that. That's no way to live life. And it's hard sometimes, you know, it is hard. There are days where I do nothing but think about it. When he's at school, I don't have any control. That is completely out of my control. And if he has one at school, which has happened, I have to depend on people I don't know to take care of him.
Right.
And so far, you know, the one seizure he had at his junior high, they did wonderful. They were great. They did everything they were supposed to do. And I am very thankful for that. We're not going to talk about the elementary school because that will just get me angry and I might cuss a lot. So we'll talk about that later. I just try and just not let it define us. I just said this out loud to somebody the other day and I've been keeping it inside because I didn't want to think about it. But I finally had to say something because it was driving me crazy. But Ian's getting ready to go into the 6th grade.
Yep.
It's going to be the same time that this happened to Nathan. And so now my anxiety is up about him. And I know that the odds of it happening to him... And
I can totally see that.
Yeah. I know that the odds of it happening are very slim. And I know that. But it doesn't make it any easier. So...
No.
Well,
I can understand that. So... With Nathan and the whole driving thing, does he know that there's a possibility he won't be able to get his permit or whatever? Because I mean, I know that's something that weighs heavy on your mind. Obviously, is it something that he thinks about? You know, does he know it or?
We actually really haven't talked about it much. I haven't really brought it up yet. I guess maybe I was just kind of waiting to see if these were going to go away. You know, so far they haven't. They're still here. They're still relevant. And I just, you know, I just don't know. I don't know if he's thought about it. I haven't had that conversation with him. I probably won't have that conversation with him until it is time where he can get a permit because, you know, his friends are going to start talking about it. And when he becomes a sophomore in high school, you know, that's going to become a subject. And then we will probably have to have that conversation. And, you know, when we have it, we'll have it and we'll talk about it together and we'll try and figure out what we can do. I'll have to start doing research and asking his doctor and, you know, we'll cross that bridge when it comes. But I don't know if he's really thought about it or not. He's not, you know, Nathan, he's not a very talkative kid. So.
No, he's not. And, I kind of figured that was what you would say. I was just wondering, because I do know, I've got Katie, who's the same age as Nathan, and she's already, like, up here, I don't know what the rules are in Arizona with driver's ed, but, like, when you and I were in school, we did simulator driver's ed. We did a class, and then we drove in fake cars. I mean, they were whatever. But up here where we live, it's a requirement that they get their permit, but they have to take a driver's education class that's separate from the school. I mean, it's given at school by one of the teachers, but they do I don't remember how long it is. It's like 3 months of book work, like testing and all of that, movies and the actual class. Yeah. Then it's actual behind the wheel. They have an actual car, and they have to drive, and it's a requirement. We document their time that they're behind the wheel before they can even get their permit while they're taking the study part of the class. And then they get their permit right after they pass the class, and then once they get their permit, they do so many hours, and then they do behind the wheel. Yeah. And that, So do they do that in Arizona too?
I don't think so. I mean, we do have driving companies out here, like, driving you can.
Sure.
One of my friends at work, her son just did it where they actually, and it was like $750, but they would come and pick him up in a car, take him out and drive around, and then bring him home. If we are able to do that, if Nathan is able to drive and do all that, that is definitely something that I will probably be doing. Not that I don't want to teach my son how to drive, but all kids, they don't like to listen to their parents. We're like the last people they want to listen to. So I would rather have somebody else take over that portion of this. So,
well, not only that, but it's scary to drive with your kids. Yeah. Holy cow. When I was teaching, in fact, I did take my Caitlin out once and just let her drive. It was like earlier this year, or like last summer, and she drove, and it was scary. Like, I only let her drive on a straight road, but it was scary. Yeah. It was definitely one of those things where I was like, the coordination there, like, things that we take for granted as far as being a driver goes, or anything, but in a situation of driving, your foot works at the same time as your hands work to turn the wheel and put your blinker on and push the gas, push the brake. I mean, all that stuff works together in unison, and we just know how to do it. But a brand new driver is like, floor it, let go real quick, slam on the brake, turn real fast. It's like, there's ditches around here, and we're going to end up in one of them.
Well, I didn't get my license until I was 21. Like, I didn't have...
I remember that.
I didn't have any reason to. When I was 16, my dad wasn't going to let me drive his car. I didn't have a car to drive. I'm like, what's the point? There's no reason. And then my stepmom came along, and she told me that if you get your license, I'll let you drive my car. Well, she had a cool little, like, sporty, like, red Toyota type looking car. So I was like, hey, let me get my license. And I was 21 before I even got it. In fact, when I met my ex-husband, I didn't even have a driver's license when I met him, because I met him when I was 19. I didn't have a driver's license. So, I mean, honestly,
you were with him for 2 years before you... Really?
Yeah, I was...
You were with him for 2 years before you got your driver's license? Yep. I don't remember that.
Yep, I know.
Wow.
Well, because at that time in our lives with our friendship, you were living on the other side of town, and we kind of were doing our own thing. We didn't talk, like, every single day, or even we only talked, like, every now and then, until you became pregnant with Alyssa, and then it kind of took a turn. For the better, not for the worse.
But, I was with you the very first night that you met him.
Yep.
I was with you that night.
You were.
And then it was the next weekend that you guys, okay, so and you're right, I do remember that that was a time in our lives where we were kind of, I just had a flashback.
Oh, wow. Boy. That was like,
that was like a different time.
Whole, like, head roll and body roll type thing. That was kind of crazy. But
yeah, because I was living in Phoenix in Cave Creek, and we all know who lived in Cave Creek. So that was one of those.
That's going to be another episode.
Anyway.
We're going to talk about the crappy boyfriends that we had at one point, too. I honestly think 16 is too young for people to drive. I think that the driving age should be 18. Okay. That's my own personal opinion. I don't think that 16-year-olds... I mean, who at what point thought that a 16-year-old... It must have been somebody who didn't have a 16-year-old that decided that the age of 16 was a good time for people to start driving. Because honestly,
that's funny.
At 16, none of us made good decisions at 16. None of us could do more than two things at one time. I mean, let's be real. Driving at 16 is kind of a dumb idea. But anyway, that's just my own opinion. You've told your story.
Well,
I've told my story.
Yeah.
And I told you that one of us might cry. Of course, it was me to be the first one to cry. So, it is what it is.
Well, you know, just real quick, you touched on the whole how epilepsy can happen at any time. Mm-hmm. And with lesions, and most people have lesions on their brain and all that. And that is something, the whole lesion thing, that's what happened to me when I had my MRI. Mm-hmm. That is when I found out that I had MS. And we can certainly talk about that another time, because that's been a 10-year thing, and it's not been a big issue for me. I've been very, very fortunate with it.
And MS is multiple sclerosis, just so people who don't know what MS is.
I went through that whole worried about it, and so me having the lesions and being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, with epilepsy, that could be a thing for me too someday, or not. I just mean that with the whole lesion thing, I've got 3. I think it's 3 or 2. I haven't had an MRI in a long, long time now, but I've had MS for about 10 years.
I can't believe it's been 10 years.
Almost 10 years.
Wow.
Actually, it's 9. It was 9 years in April-ish, so it'll be 10 years next year. But yeah, it's kind of it's crazy how much stuff is out there, and what you can. There's lots of things out there, and it is scary. And I just kind of went off on a little rant there, but.
No, I do think that
it is what I do.
I do think that we and maybe another episode, because we're coming up on our time, but I think we do need to talk about your MS. And I have 2 cousins who have MS, and I mean, I'm not very close to my cousins, but I do know, I mean, they do have the same disease, so it's definitely, I think, a worthy topic to speak about and talk about. So I hope that this new change that we're making will, I guess my goal is, I just want to help. I just want people to know that they're not alone, and that we are, we're just 2 people, and we have a lot of, we're going to talk about stuff coming up. We're going to talk about mental illness and how both of us struggle with that on a daily basis. We both have depression and take medication for that. And if even one other person tells me that, why can't you just be happy? They will get stabbed in the throat, I think, because it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And that is so true. That is so true. And I'm with you on that. I think that you and I are people pleasers, and we always have been. It's always been that way. So I think that this kind of turn for you and I will be a good thing, because if we could just, if one person says to us that we did something that they could relate to something that we're talking about, we've done a great job. And I think that's kind of a goal, and that would be neat.
I think so too. So I that's what I want to hear. That's what I'm hoping, that people will let us know that, you talking about this, and I know, I'm going through the same thing, and so I know that I'm not the only one, because I can't tell you how many days where I feel like I'm the only person in the world that's going through this. Yep. I know that I'm not, but you can't help having those feelings of, why? Asking. I can't tell you how many times I've asked that why why? I just, I look up at the ceiling and I'm like, why? Why him? Why Nathan? What did he do? What did we do? We're good people. We try and do good things.
Well, if you want to get in touch with us, you should email us at spikecoffeeandsarcasm@gmail.com. You can find our podcast just about on any outlet. We're on Google Play, Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. What else, Van?
I think
you can follow us on Twitter.
Did you say iTunes? I don't know. I always miss one.
I did say iTunes.
I always miss one, so I was just letting you go with it because you always tell me the one I miss. So you can just keep going.
But you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're on them all. So, and if you have any suggestions or thoughts, let us know.
Yes,
we'd love to hear it. All right. Well, then we will talk to you guys later.
Yes, we will see you guys later. So, toodaloo.
Ciao.